It is Frankie Boyer. So whether you have a raw diet, whether you are eating cooked foods, whatever it might be, there is a problem that we all have. And that is, how do we know what's really going on, and are we getting an allergic reaction to that food? Because food allergies are one of the fastest growing public health concerns right now in the United States. And there is no known cure. 12 million people plus have food allergies. And joining us, and we loved having her, and we welcome her back on her birthday, Mireille Schwartz, the Family Food Allergy book. Happy birthday.
Thank you. I can't think of a better way to spend it than having another conversation with you.
And I'm so sorry we didn't connect when I was in San Francisco. Are you in the city?
I am. We're right on Alamo Square. It's beautiful, and it's foodie central, so food is something that's very prevalent on everybody's minds here, very much so in San Francisco.
But the food is gorgeous, and I've never been to a Costco that everything is the organic foods in the Costco in San Francisco is extraordinary.
That's actually the norm, and even our little house pets here in the house eat organic, I have to admit.
It's a real different way of life.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. And I just, the farmer's market, everything, the ferry street, the ferry building, oh my gosh.
I'm so glad you enjoyed your visit. And, you know, the thing about food allergies is they do force us, the benefit of them is they force us to think about everything that we eat and the genesis of where these foods come from in a very sophisticated way. And that creates a conversation about how we keep ourselves well through our diet, and pondering what you eat and creating a balanced harmony to keep your body healthy is a really vital dialogue to have with oneself anyway, despite food allergies or not.
So tell us how all this came about for you and your big interest.
I'm severely seafood allergic myself since birth, and that meant something very different back then. As you know, it's my birthday, and I won't say my birth year, but obviously, you know, you can't be 21 forever. And many decades ago, there were not food labels. There was not all of this advocacy that there is today. At its most rudimentary, a food allergy is when one's own immune system is miscalibrated. So it occurs when your immune system mistakenly attacks a food protein, and ingestion of the offending food triggers this sudden release of chemicals, including histamine, resulting in the symptoms of an allergic reaction. Now, the symptoms can be mild. For example, it could be just some annoying localized itching, rashes, and hives, but they can also become severe incredibly rapidly and cause trouble breathing, wheezing, a dramatic drop in blood pressure, a loss of consciousness, and even death. And even trace amounts of a food can cause a life-threatening reaction. So strict avoidance of the allergy-causing food, is the only proven way to avoid an allergic reaction. And unfortunately, these medications to save you from an allergic reaction can only be administered to control symptoms after the reaction occurs.
So the 8 primary food allergies are?
Yes, the 90% of food allergies fall within what we call the Big 8. And those common allergens are egg, milk, wheat, soy, fish, shellfish, peanuts, and tree nuts.
Okay. Now, we don't want to take any of this lightly. There is a difference between having an allergic reaction to one of those foods and a sensitivity to those foods. So there's a big difference.
There are, and allergic diseases can include, like you were saying, an allergic rhinitis, which is commonly known as a hay fever, an atopic dermatitis, an eczema, some rashes, some runny nose. These are fall under the classification as allergic diseases, but they are not a severe food allergy and anaphylaxis. And with a food allergy and anaphylaxis, what people do in an emergency situation is you have to take something called epinephrine.
And epinephrine comes in something called an EpiPen.
You got it. It's a self-injectable device, and it is the medication of choice for controlling a severe allergic reaction.
Now, I know that you have shared with us on air, birthday girl, that you have two of them because you're always afraid.
Yes, it's best, I figure, in an emergency situation, better safe than sorry. The first epinephrine auto-injector may not function properly, or 911, which needs to be called, may become delayed, and your symptoms can start to return after several minutes. So when in doubt, it's always best to continue with the course of epinephrine until you're in the hospital and you can be monitored correctly and appropriately.
Have you had to have many trips to the emergency room because of hidden foods, or because the restaurant or wherever you were eating it just happened?
Not in some time. Again, back when I was growing up, there was not these food labeling laws. So back then, it was nonstop. It could be any time from several times a month to several times a week. Now it's a little bit more transparent because reading ingredient labels for all foods is one of the key steps to avoiding a reaction. Well, when there weren't labels to read, it was just a free-for-all. And
but
now
there are kitchens and chefs that, unfortunately, they're using the same cutting board, the same knife, and so even if your child has an allergic reaction and they think to the best of their ability they're not, contaminating foods, it can happen.
Absolutely, and you brought up the interesting topic of cross-contamination, which in essence means every cutting board, every knife, every plate needs to be correctly sanitized so that it doesn't carry forward even many particles of the allergen.
Because even those little particles can have a detrimental effect.
Exactly, and unfortunately, currently there is no cure for food allergies.
Right. So, and most allergies, food allergies, is it because of the way in which we become allergic to it? Is it because we eat the same foods every day? Is it because foods are genetically modified? Do we inherit? Is it a combination? Yeah.
Well, yes, and last time I was on, I know we chatted for a brief moment about those fishy tomatoes. There are three prevailing theories about the root cause regarding why food allergies are on the rise. So the first of the three is there's heredity. And these types of allergic diseases, even including, like we had talked about, the rhinitis, the eczema, dermatitis, asthma, and food allergy, all tend to run in families. So indeed the tendency to have allergies is definitely inherited. But then there's also the hygiene hypothesis, which suggests that the overly sanitized state of our modern environment is upsetting the normal development of the immune system, leading to a possible overproduction of all these antibodies. And the main premise is that decreased exposure to all these germs and other disease-causing substances due to just the basic characteristics of our modern Western lifestyle, has affected the immune system's opportunity to develop standard immune responses. And because of this lack of opportunity, the immune system becomes more prone to respond by reacting to otherwise harmless substances, in other words, developing allergies. And finally, there's that GMO theory. And it just so happens that in 1996, the GMOs, which stands for genetically modified organisms, were introduced into our food supply. So it's now become possible to insert genes that can, for example, make a plant resistant to specific diseases or insects, or to make a plant easier to grow with less chemical weed killers, or to improve how it even ripens. And these show up as ingredients in an enormous amount of foods and sodas under one name or another. And these genetically modified foods are produced from organisms that have had specific changes introduced to their DNA using these methods of genetic engineering. Now, every major scientific regulatory oversight body in the world, the FDA, the National Academy of Science, they've concluded technically that genetically modified foods pose no harm, but still, it's a prevailing emerging theory, and I think I said this before to you as well. I'm very curious regarding to see what long-term impact these GMOs will have on our immunology.
I agree with you. I don't know what the end result is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
How do you manage for your family, though, with your own issues and your daughter's issues with food?
My overall message, having lived through an advent of a time when it was quite different and seeing these vast improvements today, my overall message really remains very positive. As I say in my family food allergy book, go out and live your life. I feel like you can't live harboring fear and anxiety. It's important to come up with a strategic action plan how to live with your medical condition, but that should in no way impact living with your medical condition and working to keep it as marginalized as possible. Realistically, food is to be celebrated and enjoyed. The family table and communal meals spent together are an integral part of our life and our joy, and that does not need to go away just because you have to be cautious about what you eat.
So your life and what you do for a living, and tell everybody what you do.
I am the CEO and founder of the Bay Area Allergy Advisory Board, which I started in 2007. Our mission is to provide support, help, and medical resources, and even in some cases the medication, for severely food allergic families in the Bay Area, regardless of their income level. We see families at every income level, and we're always happy to help them come to terms with the medical condition, coping with it, coming up with a strategic solution, getting the medical testing necessary to confirm the allergy, and if they can't afford the medication, which can be pricey, we even help them with that as well.
Yeah. I think the message is so important, and what I want people to take away from this conversation today is that even though you may not think it's a big deal, it could be life-threatening, and that's what we really need. We don't want to alarm anybody, but if you have a full-blown food allergy, it can be life-threatening.
That's right.
And what are some of the symptoms if you are having a real full-blown allergic reaction to a food that you've just eaten? How soon afterwards does it happen?
Well, it can vary, but it can happen from within a few moments to even a few hours. And it's important for people to remember that there can also be what's called a biphasic reaction, which is several hours, between 6 and 24 hours later, after the symptoms are in control. There can be a second wave of the symptoms, just as dramatic as the first wave.
I did not realize that.
Yeah, that's called a biphasic allergic reaction. And so sometimes if you've had a very severe anaphylactic reaction, facial swelling, difficulty breathing, a drop in your blood pressure, and you are taken into the hospital and given some epinephrine, there can be some of this waiting period. You start to feel better, the symptoms appear to go away, and they keep you there, and they're quite diligent about making sure you don't go anywhere. You stay there for hours. They bring you the DVDs. It's sort of like staying in a little hotel for a while, because they need to ensure that there will not be a second wave of this biphasic reaction.
Sure.
There's no way to predict if there will or won't be.
This is such great information. The book is the Family Food Allergy Book. Birthday girl!
Oh,
Mireille Schwartz, what's the best website?
We have a website, www.allergyff, like San Francisco.com.
And I hope you have a absolutely spectacular birthday today.
Hearing your voice has already put it off to a great start over here.
Thank you so much. It's a great book. It's great information, and we need it so badly because you just don't know. And more to come from Mireille down the road. Thank you so much, everybody, for being with us. This has been another edition of the Frankie Boyer Show. Thanks for listening, and you make it a great day and smile.